The first thing that registered was the sizzle. The acrid scent of smoke and scorching oil filled my nostrils, a familiar, gritty reality that anchored me in a moment I remembered with painful clarity. I was standing in the kitchen of our cramped apartment, a spatula in my hand, stir-frying vegetables for a man who had already in his heart discarded me. I had been reborn. The knowledge settled in my gut not as a shock, but as a cold, hard certainty. The phantom pain of cancer, the gnawing emptiness of a lonely death in a slum rental. These memories were more real to me than the scene before my eyes. Liam Walsh's arms slid around my waist from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. His breath, warm and intentional, ghosted over the nape of my neck. I stiffened, the instinctual revulsion so strong I nearly dropped the spatula. "Elara." His voice was a low, sticky murmur designed to coax and manipulate. "I need to ask you something. About the job." The university had offered one spousal employment quota per faculty member. I was Liam's legal wife. But I knew what was coming. The script was etched into my soul. Can you let Maya have the spot?" he asked, his tone dripping with a feigned, sorrowful sweetness. "You know how much I owe her family. This is the only way I can repay them." Sizzle. Pop. A droplet of boiling oil leapt from the pan and landed on the back of my hand. A sharp, stinging pain flared and I gasped, jerking my hand back. Liam didn't even flinch. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just stood there, a block of wood, his entire focus on the next verbal dagger he needed to plant in my heart. "With your background," he continued as if my pain was a trivial interruption, "the best you could get is a dorm supervisor position. But Maya, she has a master's degree. She can be a lecturer. She understands the situation and is willing to compensate you financially." He was selling me out. "But for her to get the offer," he finished, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we need to get a paperwork divorce first. It's just a formality. I promise you the second she gets permanent status in 3 years we'll remarry. It's you and me always." A different pain, deep and visceral, clawed at my abdomen. The memory of cancer, a pain that had consumed my last days, flared in protest. It was a hurt 10,000 times worse than this superficial burn. In that previous life when I had been diagnosed and drowning in despair, I had gone to him, my husband, for help. He hadn't let me speak a single word. He had cut me off, his face a mask of disgust. "Elara, I'm a university professor now. Look at you. You have an adult education diploma. Is it fair to ask me to stay tied to you? Sure, you worked to put me through school, but I'm giving you this apartment in the divorce. That should be more than enough. I'm married to Maya Dow. She's the woman who truly matches me. Don't embarrass yourself by coming here again." He'd had security drag me out. I died alone. How foolish I had been, thinking that holding on to a man like him was synonymous with holding on to happiness. How could happiness ever be rooted in something so cold and ungrateful? I turned off the stove. The sizzling stopped, leaving a ringing silence. I moved to the sink, twisted the tap, and let the cold water run over the burn. I was trying to extinguish not just the sting on my skin, but the searing, centuries-old pain buried deep in my memory. I took a deep, steadying breath, the kind I hadn't been able to take in my final moments. I turned around, my face a placid mask, and looked at the man who had been my ruin. "All right," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "Let's get divorced." Liam instantly froze. His carefully rehearsed script, the one where I would sob and recount my 8 years of bloodshot-eyed labor to fund his education and his mother's medical bills, shattered. He had been ready for hysterics, ready to administer patronizing comfort and manufactured guilt. He was not ready for this serene acquiescence. You mean it?" he stammered, his voice dry and scratchy like sandpaper. He still hadn't noticed the angry red mark on my hand. His eyes were locked on mine, desperately searching for a trace of the pain, the hesitation, the love he took for granted. He found nothing. My gaze was a still, deep lake. I pulled a napkin from the holder and slowly dried my hand. "Why not? Don't you have the money?" I looked up, a faint, sarcastic smile tugging at my lips. Being a dorm supervisor sounds mind-numbingly boring anyway. "I love money, Liam." He physically recoiled as if I'd struck him. "Love money?" he repeated aghast. His facade of the composed, reasonable academic cracked wide open, his face twisting in distaste. "Maya is a professor's daughter. I owe her father a great debt. I'm just trying to do the right thing. I cut him off sharply. Who doesn't love money? Just last month, I worked 2 straight weeks of overtime to cover your mother's hospital bills. If you were so concerned with right things, you wouldn't have had me suffering through night shifts while you stand here making excuses for someone else. But Alara, he tried to argue, flustered. I took a step closer, my gaze sharpening into a blade. Liam, you promised me. You said if I put you through school, you'd take care of me for the rest of my life. But 2 months after graduating, you're still sucking the life out of me. This job's spot. Consider it your repayment. Every word was a chisel strike on stone. I'm giving up the job and I want the money. But this opportunity is worth at least 300,000. Not a single cent less. Pay me and I'll sign the divorce papers. Don't pay, well, we can drag this out and see who blinks first. Liam's face turned a deep mottled gray. He was rooted to the spot, utterly disarmed. I ignored him and dished the now wilted vegetables into a bowl. I sat down at our small table, scooped myself a bowl of the creamy fish soup I'd made, and took a slow, deliberate sip. I let out a satisfied sigh. Aren't you going to sit down and eat? I asked, raising an eyebrow. He stared at me as if I were a stranger, a monster wearing his wife's skin. No, he bit out. Maya booked a room at the Grand Marquis to celebrate me locking in the job. It's all industry people. Oh, I replied without looking up from my soup. Sounds lovely. Don't forget your keys. If you drink yourself unconscious, I won't be the one picking you up. The air in the apartment froze solid. There were no tears, no clinging, no attempts to mark my territory. The foolish, lovesick girl who would have run out into a stormy night to fetch him was gone. All his planned arguments, his expected soft coaxing and strategic compromises, every bit of his manipulative architecture crumbled to dust. My calm resistance was more unnerving than any tantrum he could have imagined. Liam stood there for a long moment, a statue of repressed fury, before he snatched his keys from the bowl by the door. Bang! The door slammed shut with a deafening crash that made the water in my glass tremble. I looked down, poked another spoonful of soup and thought to myself, it really is fresh and sweet. This time the sweetness was all mine. The clock had just struck 2 a.m. when the familiar, clumsy sound of a key fumbling in the lock echoed through the silent apartment. I was sitting on the sofa in the dark, not out of devotion, but because I had been waiting for this moment. I heard Liam stumble in, the stench of expensive whiskey preceding him like a foul cloud. He saw my silhouette on the couch and I felt the tension in his shoulders relax from across the room. A faint, smug smile was audible in his voice when he spoke, his words slurred. Don't wait up so late next time. Just go to sleep early. He said it like a magnanimous king granting a favor to a devoted subject. He then staggered toward the kitchen, expecting to find the ever-present bowl of hangover soup I had always, in our past life, warmed for him. It was a ritual, a testament to my servitude. But the kitchen was dark and empty. The countertops were clean, the stove cold. The pot I usually used sat clean and untouched in the drying rack. The comforting warmth he felt entitled to didn't exist. Not even a trace. His footsteps halted. I heard him turn, the last vestiges of his false, drunken warmth evaporating under the sting of rejection. Ilara, he barked, his voice raised with the anger of a neglected child. You've been home all night and you couldn't even be bothered to make me a bowl of soup? I didn't answer him with words. Instead, I reached for the lamp, flooding the room with a soft, revealing light. Then I slid the thick stack of papers I had been holding across the coffee table. The sound of paper scraping against wood was unnaturally loud in the stillness. Who says I've been idle? I said, my voice flat. This is the divorce agreement I drafted. Look it over. If everything is acceptable, sign it. He stared at the papers as if they were a venomous snake. What is this? He sputtered, his voice rising in disbelief. What do you mean? We agreed it was a temporary arrangement. A formality. Why are you making it so official? I lifted my chin. The light from the lamp cast just enough of a glow to highlight the cold, sharp glint in my eyes. A fake divorce certificate is still a real divorce certificate, isn't it? He was momentarily choked into silence, then swatted the papers aside irritably. But we're still living together. We're still a family. He even forced out a half-hearted, comforting smile, a pathetic attempt to regain control. I already discussed it with Maya. Since she's new in town, she'll stay here with us for a while. Don't worry. Once I start working, you can relax at home. Just help Maya and me manage the household. The more he spoke, the smoother his voice became, as if he were painting a rosy, delusional blueprint for our future. Maya even said your cooking is great. She's looking forward to enjoying it regularly. Under the harsh living room light, the face I had once been so obsessed with now twisted into its ugliest, most authentic form. He actually expected me, his soon-to-be ex-wife, to serve as a domestic servant for him and his new woman. The audacity was breathtaking. I gently tapped the papers on the table with my fingertips. Since we're getting a divorce, you and Maya will also need to get a real marriage certificate to secure her the job. So, I looked straight into his eyes, speaking each word slowly and with deliberate clarity. If we don't settle the division of my assets now, are you planning to let Miss Vance take my share when the two of you inevitably split in the future? Liam's expression soured instantly. Alara, that's such an ugly thing to say. You think Maya would care about our little pile of stuff? I let out a soft, mocking laugh. Even brothers settle accounts clearly. I leaned in slightly, my voice steady but pressing. If you won't sign, then I think that dorm supervisor job at Westbrook University, the one you look down on, sounds just fine for me after all. That was the trigger. The threat of me showing up at his prestigious university, a constant reminder of the low-class wife he tried to discard, was unbearable to him. Fine. I'll sign. He grabbed the pen from the table in a rush, desperate to shake off the embarrassment and entanglement. Without even bothering to glance at the contents, he scrawled his name across the signature line in a messy, hurried script and slammed the pen down with a definitive thud. I watched him, my heart as still and cold as a deep winter lake. He was so eager, so dismissive, so certain that I was an idiot playing a short-sighted game. He didn't even notice the clause I had meticulously written in, the one that stated he would leave the marriage with nothing. No claim to any future assets, no share of the money he was about to pay me. He was signing away his rights for the price of my silence and disappearance. After signing, he shot up from his seat, the stench of frustration and alcohol clinging to him like a second skin. I've been drinking, he muttered, a familiar tactic. Don't want to stink up the bedroom for you. I'll sleep in the study tonight. It was his classic form of cold violence. In my past life, worn down by years of emotional deprivation, I'd been deeply insecure, terrified of any distance between us. Every time he threatened to sleep in the study, I would rack my brain, apologizing for crimes I didn't commit, begging him to come back to our bed. This time I simply responded with a non-committal, not even sparing him a glance. There was no apology, no begging, nothing he had come to expect. The room hung in a dead, heavy silence. A few seconds later, his humiliation twisted into pure, unadulterated rage. He spun on his heel and stormed into the study, reeking of booze and fury. Bang! The door slammed shut with a deafening crash that made the entire apartment vibrate. The water in the glass on the coffee table trembled violently, just as it had when he left hours before. This time I smiled. I stood and returned to the bedroom, locking the door behind me. I went to the closet and carefully moved aside a stack of sweaters, retrieving the envelope I had hidden there. I pulled out the single most precious sheet of paper I now owned. My admission letter. A master's in translation studies from Crestwood University. Under the soft yellow glow of my bedside lamp, the paper seemed to shimmer. Memories of my past life flashed. My weak high school scores, my decision to work and support Liam, the gnawing fear that I wasn't good enough for him. That fear had driven me to secretly study for an adult bachelor's degree and, ultimately, to sit for the graduate entrance exams. In my previous life, I had presented this letter to him like a holy offering, a ticket to finally being his equal. He had taken it, sneered, and tossed both the letter and my fragile excitement into the trash. A grad degree from a no-name university? No one at my school would even look at this, Alara. Stop messing around. Just be my good little wife. That's the proper path. You hold the rear so I can charge forward for both of us. Charge forward. In my last life, he was the one who had shoved me headfirst into the battlefield of despair. I gently traced the embossed university seal with my fingertips. This time I hadn't told Liam. My battlefield wasn't in his kitchen, and I wasn't going to live my life under anyone's feet. My battlefield was at the very university he had sneered at. I would carve out a future with my own hands, one that no one, especially not Liam Walsh, could ever destroy. The morning of the divorce dawned clear and bright, a cruel mockery of the somber occasion it was supposed to be. I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau early, the stillness of the waiting room a stark contrast to the storm that had raged in my heart for a lifetime. I didn't have to wait long. Liam showed up right on time, but he wasn't alone. Maya Vance was glued to his side, a possessive hand curled around his bicep. She was a vision of calculated elegance, decked out in head-to-toe luxury brands that screamed old money and privilege. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, swept over my simple worn jeans and t-shirt, and her lips curled into a subtle, disdainful smirk. "Ilara," she said, her voice a saccharine simper as she stepped forward. She held out a heavy, discreet paper bag. "The compensation. 300,000 in cash as agreed." I took the bag, its weight a tangible, satisfying anchor in my hand. It was heavy with the weight of 8 years of my blood, sweat, and sacrificed sleep. Maya gave a short, arrogant snort, unable to contain her triumph. "You know, if it weren't for Liam, a woman like you would never have seen this much money in her entire life." The condescension in her voice was a spark to the tinder of my resentment. My fingers tightened around the bag's handles, my knuckles turning white. I raised my head, my eyes as cold and hard as chips of glacial ice as they swept over her. "This opportunity," I said, my voice low and clear, "was paid for with 8 years of my youth. It wasn't a gift." I took a single deliberate step closer, lowering my voice to a threatening whisper. "Would you like to see what happens if I start shouting right now? Let everyone in this building see how the daughter of Dean Vance bought herself another woman's husband." Maya's face went parchment pale in an instant. The smug mask shattered, replaced by pure panic. Liam flew into a protective rage. "Ilara, shut your mouth." I merely chuckled, a cold, dry sound. "Let's just get this over with." I turned my back on them, the heavy bag of cash held securely in my grip, and walked toward the divorce registration counter. The process was bureaucratic and sterile. We signed the papers, pressed our red-inked fingerprints onto the documents, and finalized the legal end of our marriage. Throughout it all, Liam kept his eyes on me, a desperate, searching look in his gaze. He was waiting for it, the crack in my armor, the single tear that would prove he still had power over me. He saw nothing. There was no lingering attachment in my eyes, only a profound, bone-deep relief. As we received our blue divorce certificates, Maya practically vibrated with impatience. She immediately tugged a dazed Liam by the arm, pulling him toward the adjacent marriage registration counter. It was a grotesque, hurried ballet. They went through the entire process again, a sickening repeat performance. Within minutes, Maya was clutching a red marriage certificate, beaming as she leaned her head affectionately against Liam's shoulder. The transaction was complete. I didn't look away. I took out my phone, raised it, and snapped a clear, unmistakable photo of them. It was a scene worth preserving. Liam took his certificate and turned back to glance at me. His gaze was complicated, a flicker of something that might have been guilt, but was quickly smothered by a kind of resigned comfort, as if to say, "See? It's only for 3 years." He was already emotionally invested in the narrative he and Maya had constructed. I smirked slightly, feeling like an audience member at a particularly pathetic play. The money was settled. That was all I had ever needed from him. I turned and walked away, my divorce certificate in one hand and the leather-bound cash bag in the other. My steps were light, unburdened for the first time since my rebirth. I was free. That night, Liam came home to find me curled up on the sofa, watching a mindless variety show and eating an apple, looking as if the earth-shattering event of the day had been nothing more than a minor errand. "I'm sleeping in the study," he muttered again, once more resorting to his childish silent treatment as a form of punishment. My eyes didn't leave the television screen. "Suit yourself." Bang. The door slammed shut, another punctuation mark in the story of our ending. The next morning I was in the living room, my suitcase lying open on the floor as I methodically packed the last of my belongings. Liam emerged from the study, his hair messy, his face darkening when he saw the scene. "What's this now?" he snapped, his voice raspy with sleep and irritation. "I'm reporting to Westbrook with Maya next week." He laughed, a cold, derisive sound. "Who are you packing for? Don't tell me you think you're coming with us." He strode further into the room, crossing his arms over his chest. Maya and I are the legal couple now. What are you? You want the whole university to laugh at us? We'll send you the address once we're settled, but let me make this clear. You are not to show up on campus. I calmly zipped up my suitcase, the sound final and decisive. Who said I'm going to report anywhere? He choked on his words, thrown off balance. Then where are you going? Just getting out for a bit, I said, pulling the suitcase toward the door. I booked a plane ticket to Crestwood last night. I had the money. I didn't want to stay another second in that tomb of a marriage. He stepped directly in front of me, blocking my path, his brow furrowed in confusion and burgeoning anger. Haven't you had enough? You're just going to some resort to blow off steam, is that it? His tone was patronizing, as if he were dealing with a temperamental child. I brushed past him without a glance. He grabbed the suitcase handle, his grip tight. Alara, what resort? When are you coming back? His eyes scanned my face, trying to detect the signs of a tantrum he was so sure I was throwing. I haven't decided, I said with a slight, firm tug, pulling the suitcase from his grip. Just clearing my head. I'll come back when I'm ready. He stared at my profile, so unusually calm and distant. A thread of genuine, primal unease suddenly flared in his chest. Something was off. This wasn't the script. But the habit of control, built and reinforced over years, quickly smothered that instinct. He assumed I was just sulking over the divorce, that I would inevitably run out of money and come crawling back to the only home I had. The tight line of his lips relaxed slightly, replaced by a trace of familiar annoyance. He let go of the suitcase. Fine. Do what you want. Just don't blow all the money on junk. Come back soon. The wheels of my suitcase rolled over the linoleum floor, emitting soft, steady thuds that echoed in the silent apartment. I didn't look back. Not once. Behind me, his phone suddenly rang, the shrill tone cutting through the tension. He answered instantly, his voice transforming into something gentle and attentive. Maya? Ready for breakfast? Great, I'll come right down. After the call ended, he gave one last glance toward the now empty entryway. Whatever sliver of unease had stirred in him was swept away by the sound of his new wife's waiting voice. She'll come back, he thought, the arrogance settling back into his bones like a familiar coat. They always do. I turned the corner, dragging my suitcase behind me. Inside, nestled among my clothes, were the thick stacks of 300,000 yuan in cash and a bank card holding the 200,000 yuan relocation allowance Liam had transferred to me the week before, a final payoff to soothe his conscience. The wheels of my suitcase rolled lightly along the pavement, grinding over the broken pieces of our 8-year past. 300,000 in cash, plus 200,000 in relocation funds. 500,000 yuan total. 8 years of my youth, my labor, my devotion, traded for a stack of paper and a plastic card. It was a pittance, and yet it was everything. It was infinitely better than the broken-down apartment from my past life, the one that couldn't even cover its own mortgage. This was clean. This was freedom. At the airport, I found a trash can, pulled out my old SIM card and dropped it inside without a second glance. It felt like shedding a diseased skin. Goodbye, Liam Walsh, I whispered to the bustling airport, a genuine smile touching my lips for the first time. The future was a blank page, and I was finally holding the pen. 6 years. 6 years of relentless work, of pouring every ounce of my being and every yuan of that 500,000 into building my company, Etheria. 6 years of studying until my vision blurred, of coding through the night, of learning the intricate dance of international e-commerce. 6 years of building a life on my own terms, a life that now included a gentle, brilliant man named Julian and our son Noah. I had returned to my hometown not for nostalgia, but because the local government had invited me, Director Alara Reed, I'd taken my mother's maiden name, to evaluate a poverty alleviation program. My success with Etheria's direct-to-consumer platform had garnered attention. During a tour of a workshop producing local crafts, I ran into an old high school classmate, Ben. His eyes lit up with a familiar, gossipy excitement. Alara, how it's been forever. You were always the smart one latching onto Liam Walsh back in the day. I heard he's a full professor at Westbrook now. Really made it big. I offered a polite, distant smile. Liam and I divorced years ago. Ben froze, his mouth agape. Toway. At the last reunion, everyone was asking about you and he didn't say a word about a divorce. He just got all quiet and changed the subject. He winked, a knowing, obnoxious gesture. Landing a man like that takes skill. You don't have to be shy about it with me. My expression remained placid. A woman doesn't need to rely on anyone to survive, Ben. We pave our own paths and the world opens up for us. He blinked, gave a half-hearted, unconvinced nod, and I quickly excused myself, the polite exchange already exhausting. After the factory tour, our group was invited to lunch at a nearby hot spring resort. I'd had a last-minute video conference and arrived at the restaurant a little later than everyone else. I was scanning the room numbers, looking for the private dining room my contact, Sarah Chin, had messaged me when a clear, imperious female voice called out behind me. "Waitress, please bring us some Longjing tea for this table." I was dressed in a simple, elegant linen dress that matched the ethnic, artisanal theme of the day's visit. I suppose to a certain kind of person helpfulness and elegance in a woman could be mistaken for servitude. I turned, a polite refusal on my lips. "I'm sorry, I'm not." The words died in my throat. There she was, Maya Vance. And sitting right beside her, his face a canvas of shock that quickly morphed into something resembling pained pity, was Liam. 6 years had been kind to him in a conventional way. He looked more polished, more established. But there was a softness around his jaw, a complacency in his eyes that spoke of a life too easily won. Maya looked me up and down, a wide, cat-like grin spreading across her lips. Well. Some people take the money and run and yet still end up working as a waitress. I have to say I didn't expect that. Liam frowned, his expression a complicated mess of surprise, embarrassment, and that infuriating, patronizing trace of "you got what you deserved." "Elara," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "You're here. Why not sit down and have lunch with us?" Maya puckered her lips and nudged him sharply with her elbow. "Liam, she's a waitress now. Is it appropriate to let her join us? What if her manager finds her?" She turned to the other well-dressed people at the table, all of whom were now staring at me with undisguised curiosity. "Let me introduce everyone. This is Liam's ex." The word hung in the air, vague and damning. "This Miss Elara," Maya continued, her voice dripping with faux innocence, "doesn't have much of an education. Not much life experience either. She took Liam's money and disappeared. Judging by her look now, I'd say the money's probably all gone." A man wearing gold-rimmed glasses gave me a greasy, appraising once-over. "Being a waitress is an honest job," he said with a sly grin. "But can this beautiful waitress pour me some more hot water?" Polite, complicit chuckles circled the table. Who knew that educated elites could be so vulgar? I remained rooted in place, unmoving, my face a mask of cold contempt. The man's smile faltered, annoyed by my lack of deference. He slapped the table lightly. "Where's the manager? This one needs an attitude adjustment." Liam, ever the cowardly peacemaker, reached for my wrist. "Don't make a scene, Elara. It's just pouring water. Apologize and I'll make sure he doesn't file a complaint." He thought he was helping. He thought he was my savior. I yanked my arm free as if his touch were acid. "I'm not a waitress," I snapped, my voice cutting through the din. Maya cut me off with a dismissive wave. "What, you're going to say you're a guest here? You think you can afford this place? Being a server isn't shameful. You don't need to lie about it." "Director Reed, I should have come out to greet you sooner." Sarah Chen's voice, warm and apologetic, came from behind me. She hurried over, gesturing politely toward the more exclusive wing of the resort. "This way, please. Our room is in the Lotus Pavilion. Everyone is waiting." I turned to follow her without another word, leaving the table in stunned silence. One of the women at Liam's table, a plump lady, suddenly gasped. "Wait, Secretary Chen. What are you doing here?" Sarah turned, puzzled, looking at the woman who had spoken. "I'm Yuan Mei from the School of Media at Westbrook," the woman said, introducing herself warmly. "Last time you accompanied the party secretary to our campus, I was on the reception team." Recognition dawned on Sarah's face. "Ah, yes, of course. My apologies, I didn't recognize you at first. Today, I'm here with Director Reed to assist with the investment outreach meetings." She gave a professional smile. "We'll have to catch up another time. Director Reed's time is quite limited." "Director Reed." The words landed in the middle of Liam's table like a grenade. Yuan Mei froze on the spot. Maya's expression turned to stone, her smugness evaporating into pure, unadulterated shock. Liam was staring at me, his mouth slightly agape, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrifying understanding. Sarah, still oblivious to the drama, looked between their table and my retreating back. Wait, do you all know Director Reed? I didn't break my stride. I don't know them, I said flatly, my voice carrying clearly in the hushed room, and walked away without a backward glance. Night had fallen by the time the lengthy business dinner concluded. The air was cool, a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere of the dining room. I stepped out of the resort's main entrance, taking a deep breath of the clean, pine-scented air, wanting to wash the memory of Liam and Maya's faces from my mind. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. He emerged from the shadows near a row of parked cars, his figure tense and expectant. Elara, let me take you back to your hotel, Liam offered, stepping forward and reaching for my bag in a gesture that had once been familiar. I shifted it away from his grasp, the movement swift and definitive. He didn't retract his hand, just let it hang in the air for a moment before clenching it into a fist at his side. His brow furrowed with a frustration I knew all too well. It's been 6 years, he said, his voice low and strained. And you're still this stubborn. You disappeared without a word back then. Now you won't even give me a chance to make things right. I almost laughed. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. Make things right, Liam? You signed the divorce agreement with your own hand. You registered for marriage with Maya Vance mere hours later. And now you're standing here looking at me with this sentimental longing. Don't you see how pathetic that is? His face twitched, a muscle jumping in his jaw. But the delusion was a powerful drug. That was just a temporary arrangement. Maya and I, it's complicated. He was cut off by a soft, anxious voice calling his name. Liam. Maya hurried toward us, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. Her eyes darted from him to me, flickering with instant, possessive unease. She wrapped her arm around his, claiming her territory, and leaned into him playfully, though the gesture was stiff. I still haven't finished sorting out my promotion paperwork, she said, her voice a little too bright. The dean said it's due next week. Liam was momentarily dazed, as if yanked from a dream back into a disappointing reality. He looked at me, his tone turning urgent, pleading. Elara, just give me a little more time. Maya may have her permanent position, but a divorce now would impact her title evaluation. It would ruin her career. A cold, sharp laugh escaped me. I shook my head slowly, looking at him with something close to pity. Liam Walsh, you don't need to explain anything to me. We have been divorced for 6 years. Our business concluded the day you paid me off. We only got divorced on paper, he argued, his voice rising in flustered desperation. 6 years ago you said we'd get remarried after 3 years, once Maya became permanent. Well, she has, and we're still together. It was a desperate, flailing lie, and we all knew it. He tore Maya's hand off his arm as if discarding her could rewrite history. It's not that we want to stay married. It's just that her promotion requires a stable marital status. It's for her career. I've heard enough. I cut him off, my voice flat and final. I'm already married. The words landed like a physical blow. His pupils contracted, his face going slack with shock. Then, with a bitter, disbelieving scoff, he sneered, You expect me to believe that? You only came back because you heard we were having problems? Because you thought we were getting divorced? I merely raised an eyebrow, letting his own ridiculous narrative hang in the air between us. His voice faltered. Sophie. Maya tugged sharply on his arm, her face pale and tight. Liam, let's go. We need to finish those documents. He let her pull him a few steps, but his eyes stayed locked on mine, still desperately trying to find a crack, a hint of the old love, a sign that this was all an act. You still have feelings for me, don't you? He whispered, the question so absurd it was almost sad. I didn't honor it with a reply. I simply turned and walked toward the parking lot where my hired car was waiting. Behind me I heard Maya's shrill, panicked voice. She's just trying to provoke you. Can't you see that? Don't fall for it. Liam didn't follow, but I could feel his gaze burning into my back, his disbelief a tangible force. He couldn't comprehend a world where I had moved on. In his mind I was forever frozen in time, the devoted wife waiting for his return. Back at my hotel the silence was a blessing. I kicked off my heels and initiated a video call. The screen lit up almost immediately, revealing a handsome, gentle face that instantly soothed my frayed nerves. Julian's eyes were kind, his lips curved into a soft, welcoming smile. Was the site visit productive? His voice was a low, warm rumble, a balm after the day's tensions. I hummed, leaning back into the plush sofa, finally allowing myself to relax. Ran into a few ghosts from the past. It was annoying. He raised a concerned brow. Want me to fly over? I shook my head, a genuine smile touching my lips for the first time in hours. No need. It's a small thing. Is Noah asleep? Just got him down, he replied, his voice softening as he turned the camera. On the bed, visible in the soft glow of a nightlight, was a tiny, peaceful figure curled under the blankets. In his arms he clutched the plush fox I had bought for him. My heart swelled, the last of the evening's bitterness melting away. He was fussing earlier, asking for Mommy, Julian murmured. I'll be done here in about a week, I said. Then I'm all yours. We'll be here, he said simply, waiting for the lady of the house to come home. After the call ended, I gazed out the window at the city lights glittering below. A deep, profound peace settled in my heart. This was what home was supposed to be. A place where no one demanded your submission or begged for affection. A place where someone simply waited, gently saying, "We'll be here when you come home." It was a peace I had fought for and one I would never let anyone threaten again. The next morning I was deep in my field visit report when the hotel phone rang. "Miss Reed, a Mr. Walsh is here to see you. He says you invited him to breakfast." I hadn't, of course. It was a pathetic, transparent ploy. "Please inform him I only dine with people I've actually invited," I replied and hung up. 10 minutes later, driven by a need to end this once and for all, I went down to the lobby. Liam was there, sitting in a booth and sipping a coffee, having clearly bullied his way past the front desk. He had recomposed himself into his polished academic persona. When he saw me, he stood, a flicker of hopeful surprise in his eyes. "Elara," he said, putting down his cup. "About yesterday, my colleagues were rude. I apologize on their behalf. Can we talk? Properly." "Talk about what?" My voice was devoid of warmth. He took a deep breath as if steeling himself. I looked into it. "I didn't know you've done so well with Etheria these past few years. Your DTC model is becoming an industry leader." He paused, and a touch of that old, familiar pride surfaced in his eyes, as if my success was somehow a reflection on him. "You know, you totally match me now." I almost laughed in his face. "Liam," I stared at him, my voice even and cold. "I told you yesterday. I'm already married." He smiled then, an expression of utter, unshakable confidence. "Don't lie to me, Elara. I know why you came back. It was because of me." The delusion was monumental. "Could you be any more narcissistic?" I snapped, cutting him off. "I returned because the provincial government invited me to consult on a poverty relief project." I took a step closer, my gaze boring into his. "Tell me, does your wife know you're here, sniffing around me? Or is it that now you see I'm successful, you want to toss Maya aside and come crawling back?" His eyes widened, then grew red-rimmed, brimming with what he wanted me to believe was sincerity. "It's not like that. The person I've always loved is you, Elara. I regret everything. I should never have let you leave." But I saw it now with perfect clarity. It wasn't regret. He wasn't sad because he lost me. He was furious that the woman he'd dismissed as worthless was now a prize he couldn't have. "Stop lying to yourself, Liam," I said quietly, my voice laced with contempt. Then I raised a hand and gestured to the 2 security guards stationed near the entrance. "Excuse me," I said, my voice clear and carrying. "This man is harassing me. Please escort him out." I turned my gaze fully to the guards. "And please make a note. He is not to be permitted entry into this hotel for the remainder of my stay." Liam looked at me, his mouth agape in pure, unadulterated disbelief. "Elara, you can't be serious." But the guards were already on either side of him, firmly taking his arms. Just like in my past life, he was being thrown out of a place he felt entitled to be. Only this time it was by my command. He turned his head as they dragged him toward the doors, his shocked eyes locked on mine, unable to process that I had chosen definitively and publicly to shut him out. My phone buzzed as soon as the lobby doors swished shut. A text from Julian lit up the screen. "Have you eaten?" Noah says he misses you. I typed back, a genuine smile finally returning, about to tell Noah mommy misses him more. The confrontation should have been the end of it. I had won. But I had underestimated the venom of a wounded ego. A few days later my phone erupted in a violent, incessant buzz. It was Sarah Chin. Her voice was tight, stripped of its usual professional calm. Director Reed. Have you offended someone recently? My blood ran cold. What do you mean? The internet, it's blowing up. Someone posted a smear article. They're accusing you of sleeping your way to the top. They're saying a woman with your low education couldn't possibly build a company like Etheria without trading favors. I froze, my throat tightening. And it gets worse, she continued, her voice grim. They're claiming I had an improper relationship with you, that this project was a result of me pulling strings. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the pressure from above is intense. I'm so sorry, Director Reed, but we've been instructed to delay signing the contract until this is cleared up. I was being invited back to invest and now I was being accused of whoring my way in. The irony was vicious. I hung up and with a trembling hand opened a browser. I typed my name. Reed. The autofill suggestions were a punch to the gut. Alara Reed slept with bosses. Etheria CEO whore. Alara Reed fake degree. I found the original post. The headline was vile. The post was a tapestry of filth, woven with just enough half-truths to be believable to those who wanted to believe it. It mocked my adult education diploma, fabricated a string of fictional foreign sponsors, and described deals that had never happened. It was a fantasy, a violent, misogynistic fantasy designed to tear down a woman who dared to succeed. The comments section was a sewer. Anonymous trolls shared stories of seeing me at hotels, of my exotic tastes. They dissected my success, reducing it to the only thing their narrow minds could comprehend. My body. My phone buzzed again. Julian's name appeared. Ilara. The way he said my name was a life raft. Don't look at that garbage. I'm flying over now. He paused, his voice steady and strong. I've already coordinated with PR. LaCorp is releasing an official statement. Tonight at 8 p.m. we're hosting a live stream. An exclusive interview with the founder of Etheria. You're going to address this head-on. He arrived with a team of professionals in a whirlwind of efficiency. They set up lights, cameras and sound equipment in my hotel suite. Julian didn't say much. He just held my hand, his grip a solid, unshakable anchor. Never in my life did I imagine my first live stream would be a public trial to prove my own worth. The host, a serious-faced woman, sat across from me. Miss Reed, there are malicious rumors online targeting your personal history. How do you respond? I pulled out my first diploma, the adult education degree, and spread it on the table. The camera zoomed in. The live chat exploded with venom. Trash degree. Confirmed, she's a fraud. I looked directly into the camera. That's right. This was my starting point. You think it's worthless? Then let me tell you, to earn this trash degree, I worked on an assembly line until my hands were numb and studied at night until my eyes were bloodshot. This degree is cooked in my sweat, not my family's connections. Then I laid out my graduate degree, my business licenses, the patents Etheria held. I explained our business model with razor-sharp clarity. We are a direct-to-consumer platform. The person who wrote this filth doesn't even understand what that means. Do you think I'd need to sleep with someone to sell a phone case? The tide began to turn. The chat flooded with support. She's destroying them with facts. That laugh. Queen. The host leaned in. Facing such gendered, malicious insults, what do you want to say? The anger I had suppressed for a lifetime surged forth. What I feel is sorrow for the cowards hiding behind their keyboards. My voice rose, sharp and clear. In your moldy old script, if a woman succeeds, it must be because she sold her body. The degrees we earn, the licenses we pass, the sharpness we bring to the table, it all gets erased with one cheap phrase. She must have slept her way up. What are you so afraid of? You're afraid that women don't need to rely on you anymore. The comments section exploded in a tsunami of support from women everywhere. I had turned my defense into a rallying cry. As the stream ended, exhaustion crashed over me. Julian was there instantly, his arm around me. You were incredible, he murmured. My phone buzzed. Director Reed, she said, her voice grimly satisfied. We identified the source. The IP address traces back to the Westbrook University faculty dorms. I already knew. The registered name on the IP is Liam Walsh. And the blog account used to post the article is registered to Maya Vance. Of course. The rats in the sewer were my old acquaintances. My screen lit up with an unknown number from my hometown. Driven by a cold fury, I answered. Alara, is that you? It's Liam. His voice was panicked, chaotic. I could hear sirens and yelling in the background. The police are here. They're taking us to the station. Please, you have to forgive me. Don't press charges. Forgiveness? How absurd. Behind him, I heard Maya sobbing and a police officer's cold demand for ID. Alara, listen. Liam pleaded, frantic. That post, it was Maya. She was angry I said I'd divorce her. He blamed you. When I saw it online, I was angry you were so cold to me, so I left a few anonymous comments. Just a few. It was nothing. Just venting. I didn't mean it. Just a few angry comments. A moment of poor judgment. If I hadn't been Director Reed, if I'd been just an ordinary woman named Alara, would he be weeping now? Would he care at all? My voice was eerily calm, the calm at the center of the storm. Liam Walsh, I said. Save your remorse for the judge. I ended the call and blocked the number. The world went quiet. The next morning the storm had passed. The contracts with the local manufacturers were signed. The project greenlit once the slander had been publicly eviscerated. The air felt different, lighter, as if purified by the truth. Julian and I flew home. The moment the front door to our house opened, a small, warm missile launched itself into my arms. Mommy, you're home. Noah's little arms clung tightly around my neck, his smell of milk and sunshine and unconditional love filling my senses. I buried my face in his soft hair, breathing him in, trying to store this perfect feeling forever in my soul. Behind us, Julian wrapped his arms around both of us, his embrace warm, steady and sure. This was my sanctuary. This was my victory. A few months later, a message arrived from Sarah Chin. It was brief and to the point. Director Reed, the verdict was issued today by the District People's Court. Both individuals were convicted of defamation. Liam Walsh was sentenced to 1 year and 3 months. Maya Vance received 2 years. Sentencing is immediate. Westbrook University has announced their dismissal. I read the message twice, then set my phone down on my desk. There was no surge of triumph, no visceral joy. It was a quiet, solemn closure, the final period at the end of a long and painful chapter. My eyes drifted toward the family photo on my desk. Julian, Noah, and me smiling on a sun-drenched beach, our happiness so real it was almost tangible. The glow from my phone's screen reflected in the glass of the frame, casting a soft light on our smiling faces. In this second chance at life, I had not just sought revenge. I had built something. I had carved out a future with my own hands, a future of love, respect, and peace. I had secured my own happiness, and in doing so, I had rendered the Liam Walshes and Maya Vances of the world utterly irrelevant. They were a footnote in my history. I was the author of my future. And my story finally was just beginning. The end.